Hello everyone. Hopefully you found your way here from the Do It Now and the Register this morning. And if you're joining us later on, then welcome to this lesson on Act 1, Scene 2 of Macbeth. So today I am setting you a little recap task. You've obviously already studied Macbeth in its entirety. This is just getting your brains working, your memory recall centres working, so that you can adequately recall these important bits in exam conditions. We do this every once in a while, and you may have seen this slide before. It's called Interleaving. Now, at the moment, we're working on a language paper 1 unit in school, but I'm dropping in Macbeth lessons and lessons on our other literature subjects every once in a while, just to keep your memory ticking over. Now, this is decent revision, and it's decent revision for any subject. There's this idea of interleaving, because you can see there from the graph on the right hand side, that's called the forgetting curve. And each time you recall or relearn a piece of information, it's harder for your brain to forget it. You can see those lines of decreasing retention getting shallower and shallower the more times you review a piece of work. So hopefully the more times you review Macbeth, the easier it will be to recall some information. So you join us in Macbeth at the start of the play as a war in Scotland rages on. So there are essentially two sides, or three sides in fact, to this war. There's Duncan, who is the King of Scotland, and obviously the man who Macbeth works for, and MacDonald, who is a traitor. He's the current Thane of Cawdor, and he wishes to overthrow Duncan. There's also this whole other part of the battle against the Norwegians, which we don't really need to cover today. But all you need to know is that Macbeth is so good at fighting that in the morning of one particular day of battle, he's out fighting the Norwegians, and then by the evening, he's on the other end of the battlefield fighting the traitors of MacDonald, and that's where we pick him up. Here is a little video of a wounded sergeant giving us a report of the battle. So it's important to remember that in this scene, we don't actually see Macbeth. The character of Macbeth is still hidden from us. All we get of him is this report from the sergeant. And I'm going to play this video now so that you can see exactly what he says.
Doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald from the western isles of cairns and gallow-glasses is supplied, and fortune on his damned quarrel smiling, showed like a rebel's whore. But all too weak for brave Macbeth. Well, he deserves that name, disdaining fortune with his brandish steel, which smoked with bloody execution like Valor's minion carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hands, nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chops, and fixed his head upon our battlements. And to conclude, victory fell on us.
Valiant Macbeth. Worthy gentleman.
That small part at the end of that video there is Duncan talking about Macbeth. That's not actually Macbeth giving the report. And it says in the top right hand corner there, use your knowledge organizer. If you have access to that, the Macbeth knowledge organizer, then you'll find some more information on this important scene in Act 1. So what have we got here then? The sergeant has given us a report of Macbeth in battle. We've got some key descriptions here that I want you to dig into, and I'm not going to tell you what they are yet. What I'd like you to do is take your copy of this extract. You should be able to find it in your files section on Teams, and I want you to annotate it. If you can't annotate it, if you find that quite hard to do on the screen, then it's okay just to write down a few key quotes from this part of the sergeant's report and just to write underneath what they tell you. But we're looking here for things that tell us something about Macbeth's character. What do we learn about him from this scene? At this point, I want you to stop the video, pause it, and do some work. That should take you about 5 or 10 minutes. So what did you find then? Now obviously I'd given you one particular annotation, the Western Isles of cairns and gallow-glasses, because that's a little bit of Shakespearean that we might not understand in modern language. and that just means mercenaries and weapons and things like that that were hired by MacDonald from Ireland. But underneath that, we've got lots and lots of really rich imagery that Shakespeare employs in order to describe Macbeth. The first time he's mentioned, we've got brave Macbeth. Well, he deserves that name. So he's clearly so much better than everyone else on the battlefield, and obviously his soldiers look up to him. They see him as someone who deserves the name of brave Macbeth. In his hand, we see that he's got brandished steel. He's not afraid to be someone who gets his weapon out and uses it. And then in the line below that, which smoked with bloody execution, and the use of that verb smoked there really tells us something about the level of skill that Macbeth has when it comes to fighting in battle. He's clearly someone that knows what he's doing when it comes to fighting. We then get this really interesting image of Valor's minion. Now, Valor is another word for bravery, but minion, as we know from the little yellow dudes from the films, a minion is someone who follows. So even now, within this early scene, we've got an idea or a little clue as to how well Macbeth is going to fare when he becomes king. Because I think from this scene we get an image of someone who's pretty good at following orders, but maybe not so good at giving them out, not so good at being the leader, the guy on top. Then we've got these two very violent, very bloody images. He carved out his passage, evoking images of butchery and things like that, and then unseamed him from the nave to the chops. So when he reaches MacDonald, the traitor, he chops him in half from the nave, which is around about your belly button, to your chops on your face. So some nice gruesome, gory imagery from Shakespeare there, showing us that Macbeth isn't afraid to get the job done. So, also on your sheet, you should find this little picture of Macbeth. This is actually, he looks a little bit like a samurai, actually, rather than a Scottish mercenary. But there you go. There are lots of different versions of Macbeth that you can take an image of. I want you to explode some of those quotes that you've just written about. Just write around your picture of Macbeth. You could even draw one yourself. Just the important parts about that character. Anything that you've picked out of that speech. Within that, I want you to highlight one word in each of those quotes, just one, that you think is the most important word, the key word to your understanding of that particular quote. And then, using the next paragraph, or the next few starters that I'm going to show you on the next slide, I want you to write your own paragraph about how Macbeth is presented in the text. So here you go, a little bit of analysis. This is the kind of question that you might find in your AQA English Literature exam. How does Shakespeare use language to describe the character of Macbeth? Now that allows you to write in P paragraphs, using evidence from text, exploring those key words that you've just highlighted, zooming in on them, and providing alternative ideas, extended ideas, things like that. You should spend about 10 to 15 minutes on that task, writing down some paragraphs, doing some really in-depth analysis of that character just from Act 1, Scene 2. Okay, and that's the end of the lesson. So just one thing to think about before you go. The perspective that we get on Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 2 is not actually on like Macbeth the person. He's not actually on the stage, and all that we hear about him is reported through this perspective of the sergeant. So what does that do to our opinion of Macbeth? What does that do to our image of him? Does it make it more, or does it make him seem more heroic, less heroic, more mysterious, less mysterious? Why do you think Shakespeare deliberately holds off on introducing us to this character? Let me know tomorrow when we see you back for another lesson.